The Thread in the Fog. Chapter 1. The Still Sea. The sea was still that morning. Too still. Eli noticed it before he'd even stepped outside. He felt it in the quiet that crept through the cracked window, the way the gulls didn't scream their usual curses overhead. The wind, that ever-present voice off the northern cliffs, had gone silent in the night. And still, he heard it. A hum beneath the silence. A song in the absence. He lay in his narrow bed, eyes open, staring at the mottled ceiling. Paint peeled in corners where damp had crept in from the salt air. A single shaft of light cut through the slit in the curtains, pale and cold like a blade. The dreams had come again, same as they had for weeks now. Visions of open water, deeper and darker than any sea Eli had ever known. He sat up with a grunt, his back cracking in protest. 60 this winter, or 59. He couldn't remember. Didn't matter. The years were all the same now, greyed out and drifting. His hand reached for the hip flask on the nightstand before his feet even hit the floor. Tin cap unscrewed with a flick of his thumb. He took a long swig. Cheap whiskey. Sharp, bitter, warming. The only ritual that has stayed the same since Margaret died. His eyes drifted, as they always did, to the photograph on the windowsill. The frame was crooked, the glass slightly fogged, but the image was still clear. Margaret, younger, smiling faintly at the camera with the wind in her hair, the sea behind her. A lighthouse in the far distance. Her smile wasn't wide, wasn't showy, but it had meant something once. She had meant everything once. She was gone now. 3 years, maybe 4. Since then, life had been a string of empty mornings and slow evenings, stitched together with drink and silence. It wasn't mourning. It wasn't even guilt. Not exactly. It was something colder, like a numbness that had crept in and never thawed. Left double quotation mark. He muttered to the photo, or the flask, or maybe just the ceiling, and hauled himself upright. The house smelled of damp wool and old tobacco. Eli's coat hung by the door, salt-stained and frayed at the cuffs. He slipped it on like a second skin, pausing only to stuff his flask into the inside pocket. His boots waited by the hearth. He laced them slowly, deliberately, letting the silence stretch. Outside, the village clung to the cliffs like barnacles. The morning fog had rolled in heavy, swallowing rooftops in a wet shroud. Down by the harbour, nets hung limp and idle, boats bobbing gently with no wind to sway them. A cat skittered across the cobbles as Eli stepped out, pulling his cap low against the greyness. "Eli Mercer," a voice rasped. "Off early, ain't he?" He turned. Old Jimmy Cairns sat on a crate by the bait shack, carving something unrecognizable from driftwood. His fingers were dark with old blood and fish oil, but his eyes were sharp beneath the brim of his hat. Eli gave a grunt. "Sea's calling," Jimmy snorted. "Aye, what forgot to bring a dinner last night?" The corners of Eli's mouth twitched. A smile might have lived there once, but now it only ever showed in the tightening of his jaw. "She's quieter than you, at least." "Not what I heard." Jimmy chuckled, hacking off another sliver of wood. "They say you talk to the water now. Mutter to it like it's your wife come back." Eli's hand twitched at his coat pocket. He wanted another swig. Instead, he adjusted his collar and turned. "Don't you worry, Cairns. If she answers, I'll send her your regards." Jimmy's laughter echoed after him as he made his way to the dock. The new lease sat where he always left her, tethered tight, worn down like everything else in the village. Paint peeled from the hull in long curls, and a faint stink of diesel clung to her deck. She had seen better days, and worse. Like Eli. He climbed aboard, untied the lines, and checked the rods. Though he already knew they were there, everything was always where it should be. Routine was the only thing that kept him stitched together anymore. And still, beneath the hum of the engine as it spluttered to life, He heard that song again, that wordless pull. It pressed just behind his eyes, like a memory he couldn't quite place. Eli eased the boat out of the harbor, passing the lighthouse that rose like a sentinel above the cliffs. Its light spun lazily in the fog, though the air was too calm for any real danger. Still, it blinked, watching. The sails hung useless. Not even the barest breath stirred them. So, he motored on. He had no plan to go far. Not really. He never did. But the dreams, they had left something behind. A thought, a direction. South by east, beyond the shelf where the seabed dropped off into ink and cold. The village faded behind him in the mist. No gulls followed, no other boats. Only that impossible stillness, like the sea had been laid out just for him. Eli cast his first line somewhere past where the shallows ended. The water beneath him was dark as sin, smooth as oil. His line disappeared into it without a ripple. Nothing took the bait. He didn't care. He hadn't cared in years. But he stayed. And he cast again, and again. Hours passed. The sky above remained a flat, featureless grey. The horizon had vanished into the fog. He could have been adrift in nothing. He could have been in a dream. His flask emptied, unnoticed. The hunger in his gut dulled. The cold reached through his boots and into his bones. But he stayed. The sea, though silent, felt like it was waiting. Chapter 2. The Deep Breath. Time had gone soft. Eli didn't know how long he'd been sitting. The flask was empty. His legs were stiff. A dull ache had settled into the base of his spine, the kind that grew longer when you noticed it. He hadn't moved in some time. Neither had the rod. Nothing had taken the line, not even a nibble. Odd. Even out here, in the dead calm, the sea still had life. Little things, bottom feeders, dumb enough to bite. But today, nothing. Not that Eli cared, not really. He hadn't truly fished in years. But still, it was unusual. The kind of absence you could feel if you stayed long enough. Like an empty room where people usually socialized. He was about to reel the line in, maybe reset it, maybe not, when he saw it. The rod shifted, not a tug, not a bite, just a tiny twitch, like someone breathing very quietly at the end of a line. Eli stood slowly. He walked over and gripped the rod in both hands, leaning slightly over the side of the boat. He gave it the gentlest of lifts, testing it. Something was there, still, heavy, unmoving, not pulling away, not fighting, just waiting. He frowned and yanked upward with both arms. Nothing. The rod bent, but the line didn't rise. Then he reached for the reel and began to turn it. The mechanism clicked and spun freely, without resistance. Whatever was on the other end, massive or not, was letting itself be drawn in. The hairs on Eli's arms stood up. He looked out over the side. The fog pressed close, thick and colorless, hubbing the surface of water like breath on glass. It swallowed the world. There was no sound but the mechanical tick of the reel and the soft lapping of water against the hull. The clouds above made the sea dull and metallic. There was no sun, no gulls, no horizon. He kept reeling. Minutes passed, maybe more. Then, something broke the surface. At first, Eli thought it was a piece of driftwood, a knotted piece of bark or tarred rope. But it didn't float. It rose, slowly. A mass pushed out of the water a few feet from the boat. A section of something, ridged and slick, as long as the hull itself. Its color was impossible to place. Grey, but not stone grey. Green, but not moss. Somewhere between oil and bone. Its texture was the worst part. An organic pattern, like thick coral twisted into muscle. It pulsed faintly, not breathing, just existing. Eli staggered backwards. Then he saw it. Not the mass, the shadow. Beneath the surface, barely visible, stretched an impossible shape. Wider than the boat, much longer. It didn't move, didn't shift, just lay beneath the waves, like a continent waiting to rise. His throat dried. He blinked, rubbed his eyes. The shape didn't vanish. Eli staggered into the cabin and grabbed the radio. He clicked it on. Static. He flipped frequencies and tried again. More static. He glanced at the compass. It spun, clockwise, then jittered left, then stuttered to a stop and twitched again. His fingers reached for the ignition switch. He turned it. The engine coughed once and fell silent. Again. A whir. A click. Nothing. He was stuck. He stood there for a long time. One hand braced against the cabin wall. The silence pressed harder now. Thick and heavy. Inescapable. He could hear his own heartbeat. No gulls. No breeze. No creak of wood. Even the waves were quiet. The kind of quiet that made you feel like you were being watched. He stepped back outside and stared again at the shape in the water. The part that had surfaced had not sunk, nor had it risen further. It waited. The fog was thicker now, the world beyond the boat, entirely erased. He turned slowly in a full circle, nothing but grey in every direction. The air was damp in his lungs, and colder than it should have been. Eli sat down on the deck without meaning to, just lowered himself, stiff and careful, onto the boards. He felt older than he ever had. The water beneath the boat shivered, just slightly. A rip, not like a wave, not wind-driven, a displacement, a pressure, like something enormous had drawn a breath deep below. Eli's breath caught in his throat. Then it happened. Then it spoke. Not aloud, not above, but within. A voice like an underwater landslide, buried in the ocean floor. A sound that arrived already ancient, carved from stone and sediment and time.
I have questions.
The words echoed, not in the air, but inside the marrow of his bone. Eli clutched the rail, every part of him tense. The voice didn't return right away. It let the silence settle in again, deep and total. The presence beneath the boat was not warm, not kind. It was not a thing that loved, but it noticed, and now it had questions. Chapter 3: The Bargain. Eli stood frozen at the rail, mouth slightly open, fingers gripped white-knuckled to the edge of the boat. His heart pounded so loudly in his chest that it felt like it echoed. For a long, motionless moment, he could only stare into the fog, thick and woolen, swallowing the world. The shape beneath the boat had not moved, but the voice had come from it. That was clear. There was no other place it could have come from, no trick of sound or storm or sea. It was there, in the deep, and it had spoken. Eli took a step back, then another, until his shoulders bumped the cabin wall. He looked at the sky as if expecting it to break open and laugh at him. But the sky didn't move. It had gone dull and formless, cloud without shape, color without light. His breath came short, ragged. He grabbed a railing again, trying to slow it. "No," he whispered, shaking his head. "No, no, just the drink, too much, old head, long day." He looked down at the deck, then up at the fog again. His hand went to his coat pocket, empty. The flask was already dry. "I'm talking to myself," he said, louder this time. "Nobody's here."
You cast the line.
The voice came again, deeper now, slower, as if the very ocean was chewing out the words before spitting them out. It didn't rise in pitch, didn't demand. It simply was.
And I answered.
Eli's legs nearly gave way. He slid down the cabin wall and sat hard on the deck. The rod was still upright. The line still vanished into the water. The shape beneath them still waited, silent and massive. Eli swallowed hard. His voice came rough and thin, barely more than a breath. "What are you?" A pause, a long one, the kind of silence that made him regret asking. Then the voice returned. It didn't rise in pitch, didn't snarl. It was almost quiet.
Older than breath, older than light through water, older than the world old. Before your kind first crawled from the silt to blink at the sky, I watched stars die from beneath the waves. I have worn names like shells, taken them, shed them, forgotten them. Priest, Leviathan, voice in the brine. God.
The air around the boat felt colder now, heavy, still.
I am not what you fear. I am what taught you how to fear.
The mist drew closer around the hull, pressing in like walls. The voice didn't follow. It waited. And beneath the boat, the shape did not move. It didn't need to. Eli tried to laugh. It came out as a cough. "This is madness," he muttered. "Losing it, Mercer." Finally cracked.
Madness is a name you give to clarity that disrespects comfort.
Eli went quiet. The words didn't just say things. They arrived in him. He could feel them unfold in his chest, wrapping themselves around his thoughts like barnacles on the hull.
You cast. You reached. Not for fish. Not for food. You sought. Return.
Eli shook his head. "I just fish," he mumbled, almost pleading. "Just a boat, a line, that's all."
You know that is false. You cast not to catch. You cast to forget.
The silence that followed was thick.
You wish to drown thought, to silence guilt, to bury what floats.
Eli's head dropped into his hands. He hadn't said her name in months. Not aloud, not even in thought most days. He'd trained his mind to avoid the shape of it.
Margaret.
He jerked upright. "Don't."
She whispered in the night when she thought you slept. She stood at the edge of my cliffs 3 separate times. She wept into the drying rack while washing your dishes.
Eli's mouth opened, but no sound came. The voice was changing, not in tone, but in closeness. It wasn't in the water anymore. It was inside the boat, inside his skin.
You struck her once, then again. Said you didn't mean it, then did. Said you loved her, then didn't. Or perhaps only couldn't.
His fists clenched. "You know nothing," he spat. "You don't."
You pushed her towards the silence, and now you cast your line into it.
Eli stood suddenly, rage blooming up behind his eyes. But there was no one to strike. Only fog, only water, only the weight below. The boat rocked gently as if unused.
You wished she would return, but not for her, for you. To cleanse the ache, to set the story right.
"Shut up," Eli whispered.
To make you something else, forgiven, whole. But you are empty, you are unused.
The silence that followed was unbearable. Then, the voice shifted again, quieter now. Not a murmur, a coil.
You want purpose.
Eli blinked. It was such a simple thing. A little truth. Too sharp to handle, too familiar to deny. "You don't know what I want," he said. "You think you do, but you don't. You're just..." He trailed off. What? A fish? A god? A hallucination?
I am old.
There was no boast in the words. Only fact.
I knew the currents before your son was born. I have tasted empires in the brine. I have taken kings into the black and heard their screams stretch centuries.
A pause.
And yet, I came for you.
The line on the rod went taut, not yanked, held. Eli could feel it through the floorboards, through the deck, in his stomach. A hand, not flesh but will, wrapped around the line, holding it gently.
You cast it. I answer it. Not all lines are threads. Not all threads are worthy.
What do you want from me? Eli questioned. The question came out cracked and tired. A long pause.
To carry.
To carry what?
Thread.
Eli turned, staring out at the fog. No.
You already do.
He said nothing.
You wake without reason. You drink without joy. You fish without hunger. I offer you direction.
For the first time, Eli felt the slightest shift in the shape under the boat.
Say yes, and the ache dims. The memory fades. Say yes, and she becomes distant, less real, less raw. Say yes, and I give you something else to hold.
Silence again. The kind that only comes when something terrible is waiting patiently. Eli reached for the rod. His hand hovered over it. The voice did not speak. The sea did not move. A breath passed, then another. Final chapter, the casting. The rod stood still in his hand, tip angled just slightly out over the water, like it was waiting with him. Eli stared into the fog, and the fog stared back. He didn't move, not yet. The sea had fallen into a hush, an unnatural calm where not even the whisper of wind dared interrupt. Somewhere far beneath, that thing, that presence, waited, slow and vast and unfathomable. The line in his grip felt warm, not from the sun. There was no sun, not anymore. Just a leaden sky, pale like bruised flesh. The light had been drained from it, sapped dry. Eli glanced at the rod, then out to the mist, then down. What would happen if he did it? And more importantly, what would happen if he didn't? He cleared his throat, voice brittle. What if I say no? No answer at first, just the fog shifting slightly, a thick breath inhaled. Then it came.
Then you die.
Flat, immediate.
You drown beneath the weight of your guilt. Your bones soften. Your mind splits. Another will cast. And I will answer them instead.
Eli blinked.
You are not special. Just suitable.
His grip tightened on the reel. And if I do it, the voice shifted, softened.
Then release. Then shape. Then purpose.
A pause.
You wander the hours without direction. You speak to no one. You sleep in guilt and drink in fragments. You fish, but not for fish. You reach, hoping something reaches back. I am what has reached back.
Eli's throat closed. He turned his eyes back to the mist. His fingers ached around the rod. Why? He whispered. Why do you want this?
You are a door, one I can open. Through you, others will listen. Others will follow the thread. They will come. They will cast.
The word lingered like a baited hook. Eli stepped away from the edge. No, I'm not doing this for you. I'm not. He paused, looked down at his boots, at the splinters in the deck, the quiet, the stillness. Then he looked over his shoulder, toward the small photo half tucked in the cabin doorframe. Margaret. Her eyes like smoke. Her smile faded. I didn't kill her, he muttered. She left. She couldn't take it. But I didn't mean for. Silence answered. Not refusal, not disagreement. Just silence. Because they both knew the truth. Eli looked up. I'm tired. He stepped back to the edge. I'm done chasing guilt, done waking up, choking on memories. If this is what gives me something back, something real, then fine. He looked down at the water, at the shape, still as slate. You want me to cast? No answer, just the feeling again. Weightless pressure, like an eye opening. Eli let out a dry breath. Then I'll cast. And he did. The line danced silently into the stillness, vanishing down into the dark. Then, a noise. Not from the boat, not from the sea, from beneath the sea. A vibration, deep and wrong, like a laugh echoing through the ribcage of a mountain. A sound that had waited centuries to return.
Thread laid.
The words hummed against the boat's metal.
One more. One more.
Then, something moved. A sudden jerk. Not on the line, but inside Eli. His vision blurred. His knees buckled. His hands twitched like a puppet cut mid-performance. He fell against the side of the cabin, gasping. A sour taste filled his mouth, like rust and ash and rot. He clutched his chest. His heartbeat beat out of sync. Then, just as suddenly, it was all over. But something inside him was different. Not broken, not dead, occupied.
You are mine now, Eli Mercer. Flesh is vessel, will is anchor. Cast, and they will come. They will follow the old call, and I will gather.
Epilogue. 2 days later, the villagers spotted the new lease drifting just past the fog line. No engine, no sails, but it moved steadily toward the harbor, guided by something unseen. Eli was at the stern, rod in hand, eyes forward. He said nothing when he docked, just nodded to old cairns at the jetty. Walked home like always, didn't even seem tired. But people noticed. His eyes didn't move quite right when they talked to him. He smiled more now, but never with his mouth, just with the tilt of his head. He went out every morning again, without fail. Same time, same boat. The gulls never followed him anymore. And sometimes, when the fog came in thick and low, some said they heard him whisper just before the line touched water. One more, one more. They never found the missing tourists, or the sailor, or the girl from down south who borrowed her uncle's boat one sunny morning. The villages don't go past the third buoy now. They say the sea is wrong out there. They say it listens. And Eli Mercer, once hollow with grief, now has purpose. Not peace, not joy, but purpose. And far below, something patient waits, ancient and endless, ready to answer again, thread by thread, forever.